So the question came up whether basic autopilot's worth it or not, and I figured I'd just demonstrate with some driving of how I use autopilot and what it's capable of. So obviously it's not engaged right now, but I will be using it here shortly. And I think I'm going to take a little bit more of a scenic route just so I could show some more driving, because I'm starting from a point where just can't use autopilot. So obviously right now autopilot's not much use to me, especially when there's not a vehicle in front of me. Yeah, that should be fine. So here, I typically would use autopilot. It's probably going to get upset about these turning cars. Yeah, tried to brake a little bit. Now, if I had enhanced autopilot, I could have the car change lanes for me, but I don't. So, to change lanes, I have to disengage it. Obviously, autopilot's a little bit nicer when there's a car in front of me in town. As long as the car is within my set distance and it's close enough, because if it's further out, then the car ends up waiting till the last minute to brake and then brakes pretty aggressively. Gotta get in front of this person. I'm just using regular cruise control right now, and then just back to autopilot. I think I'm going to take a bit of a scenic route here, beyond my already scenic route. So one of the downfalls of using autopilot in town on city streets is you end up engaging and disengaging it a lot. But it does make driving nicer even in town. There are cases where the roads aren't friendly to autopilot, and I don't have any examples right here. I'd have to go to a different part of town. But basically, when you don't have two well-defined lines, autopilot can be kind of annoying to use, because it needs both the lines to determine where the lane is. So like, if there is no line to the right of me right now, and then what currently is the right lane was like parking, we'll say, then the car will kind of tend to drift. It'll assume that the curb is the other line, and I just have an extremely wide lane, and it'll tend to do weird things. I think it's something they could fix in software, but I don't think it's really a problem when it comes to the intended use of autopilot. So I can't engage autopilot until I see enough lines, or well, the car can see enough lines. So now I got lines again, so back into autopilot. And honestly, it's not too uncommon for me to do this while driving. I will have to disengage it here just because it'll be really annoying when braking. Autopilot in town is great though during what I like to call idiot hour, because all the idiots are out on the road, and yeah, sure, they're in a rush, but if they were in a rush, traffic wouldn't be backed up for blocks on end because people can't pay attention to the lights when they change. I'm just going to kick autopilot back on here. It would be nice to have enhanced autopilot so I could do automated lane changes if I want to get into the right lane, just signal and have the car do it for me. But I don't feel like that's worth paying for. Also, some of me worries to some degree about having this automation being a bad thing and reducing my skill as a driver. Also, why are these traffic lights not going? They must be new. Huh. Interesting. useful for in town. I'm gonna work my way over to highway driving. So I'll kick it off here so I can signal turn. This is something where full self-drive, I suppose, would come in handy if I wanted the car to turn for me. But so far, the one whole time I've tried full self-drive was kind of scary. This person's going slow. Oh, that's why. Forget which lane it's. I think it's the right lane. I think there's a spot here actually where autopilot might do some weird stuff. We'll see. I forget. This road, full self-drive, I know doesn't like it because a friend of mine showed me. The car kind of got a little sketchy. As you can see, the car is doing a little bit weird right now because the lane is a little bit wider because of the merge. Forget what it does here. I think this is where it tends to freak out. Yeah, so it wanted to push me into the left turn lane because it couldn't decide which lane was the actual lane. But yeah, that's one of the downfalls though of autopilot in town. It's not really recommended, I don't think. But I mean, for the most part, it does okay. And if you drive parts of town that you're familiar with, you kind of tend to learn where you can and can't get away with autopilot. I think it might do something weird here as well. Nope, this one it hesitated a little bit, but otherwise it was fine. I think it might have hesitated for that car turning in front of me. Oop. It didn't like this spot here either. It wanted to go to the right. I guess this was a decent area to prove autopilot's capabilities. So I'll be getting on the highway here shortly. Take a drink of my unhealthy soda. One thing I will say, the signal auto cancel is nice unless you're signaling to go into a turn lane. It cancels on you and you tend to forget to re-enable it. Granted, that's assuming you came from a traditional car before this and didn't have one that could cancel for lane changes. Have tested to see what autopilot would do if I left it engaged driving towards a roundabout like this, but I don't really want to find out, even if it was like late at night. I don't know, maybe it'd be interesting. Drop the cruise control speed down to like 5-10 miles an hour and just see how it reacts. I know inside the roundabout it won't let me engage it. There's not enough lines long enough. Also, it might know it's in a roundabout. I'm not sure on that. It's kind of weird because like this is my normal driving habit basically with my car, and I just really haven't driven that many manual miles in this thing. Other than like when the road conditions are really bad, or if it's just in areas where it don't work, right? And then usually, if anything, I mean, I can kick off autopilot, or well, auto steer. I still use the traffic aware cruise control at minimum. So even in my regular vehicles, I was always using cruise control. I don't want to have to maintain my speed. One thing I don't like autopilot or traffic where cruise control in is on-ramps. I find it unnerving not being in control of my speed. I'm screwing around there. Yeah, I don't trust it, so I tend to not have autopilot or cruise control going on the on-ramps. So really at this point, now that I'm on the highway, there's really nothing I would gain from having enhanced autopilot or full self-drive. Basically, the only thing that would be nice with enhanced autopilot would be having the ability to change lanes without disengaging autopilot. Not that it's that hard to re-engage autopilot, it's just I'm lazy, and after seeing how nice enhanced autopilot was with the loaner car I had from Tesla, it was like, well, this sure would be nice. I'm kind of glad this light's red. So one of the cool things about autopilot is at a red light, if there's a car in front of you, so I can engage cruise control or I can engage autopilot. And now I just kind of sit here and wait at the light. It's ideal to kind of have your hand on the steering wheel, but I personally haven't had any problems with it yet. It's not safe, but what is safe anymore? Nothing's safe. I could have both my hands on the steering wheel and a grand piano falls out of an airplane and the sky crushes me. So it's like, I don't know. One thing I don't really like on the highway, at least, is if you come from a stop, I feel like autopilot's a little bit slow to accelerate. Like, I gave it a little bit of an extra acceleration there just so I stay with the flow of traffic. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I shouldn't have to interact with the steering wheel at all. Just kind of watch the car drive. And really, the only thing I have to watch out for is people turning in front of me, or sometimes lane changes. Usually, most of the time, people are doing lane changes in a safe manner. But people turning in front of me, depending on how far I am from that car, will determine how aggressively the car will brake. So, if I don't know, let's just pick an arbitrary number, I guess. We'll say, like, if the car is turning in front of me and they're 100 feet away, the car's going to brake pretty aggressively, whether it's necessary or not. So then that's just a matter of kind of giving a little acceleration to override that if I think it's going to be safe. Generally, I've found that autopilot plays it pretty cautious with cars crossing your path. But yeah, I think it's a fairly reasonable demonstration of what autopilot driving's like in town and on the highway. I just, if the prices were lower, oh, a friend of mine, if the prices were lower, I think I would pay for it, but I don't really think it's worth paying for. I think the rental option is reasonable, to rent it for a month if you're going to go on like a long trip. But yeah, otherwise, hopefully that was interesting, and thanks for watching.